Good morning, Finelli fam. Today, we are going to make my favorite Earl Grey de la Creme. I already have the water boiled, so I just need to add the tea. And I think the de la Creme, I think it's only like a teaspoon of the de la Creme. I'm gonna pour the water. I already have my sugar in there. And then we are going to set the timer. And then we're gonna have a little story time. Be right back. Okay, so we're gonna have a little story time. You say hi? Say hi. Good boy. So, this is my son, Hunter. As some of y'all may know, Hunter he was born full term, 39 weeks. About almost 24 hours after he was born, not quite 24 hours. He started, shortly after he was born, he would not latch. I was trying to breastfeed, but he would not latch. Nurse was like, it's okay. It's probably gonna take him some time for him to latch. And I took her word for it. And an hour later, I was in my room, my own personal room. I tried latching again. He still would not latch. The lactation consultant came in to help with the latching process. He wanted to latch. He just could not latch. So we tried bottle feeding. He did not want to take the bottle. He did not want to take the bottle at all. And if he did, he would just throw it right back up. And yeah, anyway, long story short, the on-call pediatrician came in and he had this horrible, high-pitched scream. I'll attach the video in this clip.
Mr. Hunt.
The pediatrician seemed really concerned. They gave him a bath and he still had this horrible high-pitched scream. Later on that night, after my mom went home, he just wasn't acting right. Just really fussy and really couldn't really calm him down. He wouldn't take a pacifier. And he was still spitting up, which was weird. And finally, my nurse came in, and he was doing this eye thing where his eyes were just flickering back and forth. And I'm like, I bet he's having seizures. Well, I could not get him to stop crying, so my nurse came in. She said, normally we don't, take babies from the parents, we just let them bond with their parents and whatnot. She said, but in this case, we'll take him to the nurse's station and, we'll keep an eye on him so that way you could get rest too. Well, maybe a few hours later, my nurse came back with a NICU nurse and she said, we're taking him up to the NICU. She said he had 2 apnea spells where he stopped breathing. and she said there's obviously something wrong. And let me get this tea bag out before I oversteep it. And she said the pediatrician will be back to talk to me about what they're gonna do about further treatment. So around 3 a.m. which I also recorded, but I won't post it because the video is a lot longer. The pediatrician came back saying he doesn't think it's neurological, which it was. But he said, depending on how he does in the NICU, they hooked him up to an IV. They said, depending on how he's doing, if he has any more of those spells, they're gonna transfer him to the downtown hospital. Fast forward to later that morning, it was like around 7 in the morning, maybe 7, 8 in the morning. They came down to get me, and he's in the water dish. I'll be right back. They took me up to the NICU. They told me that they were gonna transfer him because he was real jittery and just, you could tell he wasn't himself. I'll post a picture in here in this clip. They transferred him that town. I got discharged that day. I went home, took a shower, got cleaned up. My son went to a family friend's to go swimming, and my mom took me over to downtown. She dropped me off at downtown, and I spent the rest of that day there with him. They did a x-ray and they did an MRI, which confirmed my worst fear. He was diagnosed with grade 3 IVH that just kept getting worse, and he had a seizure disorder. His ventricles were supposed to be like this. His ventricles were like this. I'll post, actually I will not post because I don't have those pictures, but I can get them. Just not sure when. Long story short, we were there. He was around 2 weeks old. He had... Hi, Red. At 2 weeks old, he had his first brain surgery. I was a wreck, since that was my first time having a child go through major surgery like that. I was literally a hot mess. I have not eaten at this point for like 2 weeks. I mean, I have, but just not a whole lot. He came out of surgery. He was okay. He lost a lot of blood during that surgery. Later on that day, he was like Casper White. Like, I'll post some pictures. He was just shaking uncontrollably, and they would last for like 5-10 minutes. It was so scary. They controlled it with Ativan and phenobarbital and Keppra, and there was one other one, I don't remember what it was. And thankfully they were able to get him under control. He had to be re-intubated because he kept doing the breath holding spells. I was a wreck. He was intubated for a couple days. He was intubated for. They told me, they said if we were unable, now this was the worst case scenario, if they were unable to control his seizures, to get him under control, that they were gonna have to put him into a medically induced coma. I lost it. I freaking lost it. And thankfully, we did not have to reach to that point. I pray to God every day that we never got to that point. Anyway, I was able to hold him once he came out of the intubation. A week later, his head was, I'm trying to think of what I compare it to. His head went from this to this in like days. It was the fluid on the brain that was making it expand. Hydrocephalus. I don't know if y'all are aware of, y'all know what hydrocephalus is. It's a whole bunch of fluid on the brain. And his grade 3 IVH was starting to go up to a grade 4 IVH, which is deadly. It causes problems. But at 3 weeks old, he had his second brain surgery. And that was to put in his shunt. I'd show it to y'all, but he won't let me show it. When he came out of that surgery, he did have minor seizures, but they weren't bad at all. Like he didn't destat or anything. He was just real jittery. But they gave him a little green octopus to hold on to, and he still has that. And then the next day, his brain surgeon came in, Dr. Sandberg. I thank him every day. He is such a lifesaver. I hope he sees this video. He came in a day later and said, "We're clearing him for he goes, "I cleared him for discharge." He said, it's up to the NICU nurses. He goes, "But I feel comfortable with him going home." However, he did not go home until 2 weeks later, because a week after his brain surgery, he still wasn't eating by bottle, which I get it. You have brain surgery, so I mean, especially being him a newborn, he's never taken a bottle, so he doesn't know. Feeding therapy was working with him maybe twice a day, sometimes maybe only once. I was a little aggravated. I felt like they should have been working with him more. He had a swallow study done. He passed it, which is good. And I was able to get the green light to go ahead and start bottle feed. Yay! That was so exciting. Which, however, I didn't feel comfortable doing in the NICU because I knew people were watching my every move and they'd be telling me, oh, you're not doing this right, oh, you're not doing that right. So I didn't want to get frustrated and aggravated and, you know, whatever. They said to me, there's no reason for him to be in the NICU. They said he needs to go home. And then that's when they mentioned the G-tube. I said, just do it. Just go ahead and do the G-tube. They trained me how to clean it and take care of it. And they came by, they gave me I don't have it anymore. We just sent it back. The infinity pump, I was able to take that home for a couple days and play with it and get used to it and whatever, and that helped tremendously. And a week after that, we went in the care by parent room and we were there for 3 days, I think, and he wasn't gaining weight. I was freaking out. Turned out the nurse that I had wasn't weighing him right, because next morning he was gaining fine. And we went home. He did have laryngomalacia. It's a little flap in the airway that doesn't close properly and it like makes noise or whatever. He had that the morning of discharge. I had a doctor or a nurse ask me, are you sure you feel comfortable with him going home with the raspy breathing? I'm like, yeah. I said, they told me, I've had doctors and nurses tell me that he's fine. There's no reason for him to stay, even with the noisy, raspy breathing. So we went home. We got discharged August 24th of 2020. I worked with him every single feed. He got his G-tube August 18, 2020. I worked with him every single feeding. But whenever he didn't finish by bottle, I'd pour into his, actually, this was the feeding bag we used. I mean, not this particular one, this is an unused one. I put the whatever he didn't eat in here. I prime it by hitting these, pressing these like that. I prime it and it would go all the way through. I don't have the extender piece on it. I had to take it off because my son was playing with this. And then I'd plug it into his G-tube and I hooked this up to the pump. And off we went. He was good. This would get hooked up to the pump. I would type in his times. I plug this into the G-tube and he'd be feeding. He was on continuous feeds at night, which was awesome, except the only downfall was I wasn't waking up to change his diaper. So that just meant more of a mess for me to clean up in the morning. Because, yeah, he peed out of his diaper. So, he did good. He had his shunt revision. He had a shunt revision April 27th, I think. And he did amazing. He did not need to be tube fed. He took everything by bottle. And then May 17th, he got his G-tube removed. And then August 18th, he had it sewn up. But he is thriving. He's doing amazing. He is a little over 13 months old, weighs a little over 26 pounds. Yep. So that is it, I think, for this vlog. So in my description below, I will post the link for tea. We have just about everything. So yeah, thank y'all for liking. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. We are almost at 200 subscribers. I think it's 179 maybe. I don't remember. So yeah, let's try to make it 200. Yay! Thank y'all for watching.